Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program. It is, Tuesday night. Tuesday night, we're live, we're national. The phone number is 833-4825-337-833-4-Valdez. And I'm thrilled to be with you. I'm looking forward to speaking with all of you as you call in live. And I want to get into a couple of things because yesterday I mentioned my disdain for President Trump dropping the case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. I don't trust Mayor Eric Adams. Now, I usually take offense to when people say that because I don't trust any politician, right? So it's not specific to Eric Adams. But I think it's important that if he got himself into some trouble, even if it was lawfare, let him do what he's got to do. Figure his way out. I can't say with any certitude that Eric Adams is a good hombre, right? I can't. I don't know the guy, and what I know of him doesn't look good. All right, might be a smidgen better than Bill de Blasio was as New York City mayor, but he's no Rudy Giuliani, that's for sure. And I understand that the critics were saying Trump's going to put everybody in jail. Look, he's not putting people. Trump has been letting more people out of jail than anything else, right? 1,500 pardons for J6, now eliminating a case which I'm suspecting it was some sort of retribution from the Bidens because Eric Adams spoke up about immigration. And I guess that's Trump trying to right a wrong. I get that. However, doesn't mean that wasn't wrong. Edward Caban, the commissioner of the New York City Police Department, I think they got him pretty dead to rights last I checked. Now, if there's more to that story and I need to correct the record, I will. But I don't make these guys out to be very altruistic altar boys, right? These are Democrats that thrive in a corrupt Democrat machine in New York City. And just because they might now finally be on the right side of this particular issue doesn't mean much to me. So I think we need to keep the pressure on New York City Mayor Eric Adams. We need a mayor like Curtis Sliwa, right? New York City hero. Guy's been riding the trains as long as I've been alive with his safety patrol group, the Guardian Angels. Anyway, there's a quick report I wanted to play for you last night, but I'll play it for you now on that particular topic. Check this out.
The Department of Justice has told federal prosecutors to drop the corruption case against Mayor Eric Adams, saying the prosecutor is hampering his ability to help the administration crack down on immigration. Now, Adams has pleaded not guilty to charges of bribery, conspiracy, and campaign finance violations. His trial was scheduled for April. Adams was accused of accepting benefits from wealthy foreign business people and at least one Turkish government official. The decision to drop the charges will still need to be formally submitted by prosecutors and approved by the judge overseeing the case. Mayor Adams' relationship with the president has evolved over the last few months. He met with President-elect Trump in Florida prior to him taking office. Adams also received a last-minute invitation to President Trump's inauguration late last month and attended the national prayer breakfast in the Capitol last week. Adams said he did not discuss his corruption case with Mr. Trump in their Florida meeting.
Yeah, I believe that. I don't think that they were talking about that. And I'm just, giving my observation that I don't think this should go away that quickly, right? Just because of whatever. Think of everybody else that caught a case. Just imagine somebody making Trump's case go away. Nobody did that for him. They tried to throw the book at El Trumpito, right? So I'm just saying, let's follow the facts where they go. Let's see what happens here. Anyway, that's that part of the story. Then, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu joining President Trump today in the White House for lots of different conversation, as well as the King of Jordan. And they were talking about all different types of things regarding the type of stability that has been established in the region, on whether they're going to be buying Gaza and all sorts of stuff. But I guess we'll start with this one here, where President Trump is being asked some questions regarding buying Gaza. Listen to this.
So what money are you going to use to buy Gaza?
Well, we're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it. And we're going to run it very properly, and eventually we'll have economic development at a very large scale, maybe the largest scale on that site. And we'll have lots of good things built there, including hotels and office buildings and housing and other things. And we'll make that site into what it should be. And the people from Gaza who wouldn't be able to be there for years, because you're talking about just to get it and prepare it and to take care of all of the problems that currently it has, as you know, tunnels, and people are in those tunnels. And you have some good people and some bad people, and you may have hostages right now. You know, you have the hostages possibly there. They don't know where they are. And, you know, I have a Saturday deadline, and I don't think they're going to make the deadline personally. I think they want to play tough guy, but we'll see how tough they are. But it's going to be a wonderful thing. It's going to be wonderful for the Middle East. I think it'll turn the Middle East. I think you're going to have peace in the Middle East. You're going to eventually have peace in the Middle East.
We are going to have peace in the Middle East. Now, listen, this is an ambitious plan. This sounds just about as ambitious as a reality TV billionaire named Donald Trump saying he's going to run for president, and doing it by making America great again and building a wall that Mexico's going to pay for. Well, guess how that worked out? It worked out pretty damn good. So I don't put it past El Trompito, not even a little bit. I think we are going to have peace in the Middle East. I think we're going to have economic development. I think he's saying all the right things here. And when you're saying these things while you're meeting with the King of Jordan and you've got Netanyahu in town, makes sense to me. Gaza is going to become an economic powerhouse. And I hope, and from what I'm understanding here, it says people who couldn't be there before, seems like the people that were there before might be able to come back. Some part of them, right? The ones that are willing to live in the region, not the ones that are looking to disrupt the region. Fantastic. I think it's a better plan than what we've had for the last 15 or 20 years, right? Anyway, I want to get into some Elon Musk as well. Good old Elon Musk was at it again. He's been doing a lot of things, and a lot of people are upset with Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency. Yeah. You've got all sorts of people, right? For example, you've got Representative Ayanna Pressley. She's been out there saying a bunch of things about him, that he needs to get his grubby hands off our government. Listen to this.
Last week I saw a sign in the crowd that said DOGE stands for Dangerous Oligarchs Grab at Everything. And I said it then and I'll say it again, that Elon Musk needs to keep his grubby hands, his greedy, grubby hands off of our government.
That again, Rep. Ayanna Pressley, Congresswoman, who is one of the founding members of the squad. And, you know, she went on talking about how she's having a hard time sleeping at night. And her daughter's 16 years old and looking at colleges, and she's worried about the world that she's living in now. Imagine that. A world where she's worried about this world. The world where she's saying Elon Musk has to keep his greedy, grubby hands off of our government. The world where the King of Jordan is in the White House. The president or prime minister of Israel is in the White House yesterday, the day before. They're talking about peace in the Middle East. I don't remember seeing that happen in the last 4 years prior to Trump. In fact, we saw the exact opposite. We saw this war in the Middle East break out under the Biden regime. We saw Russia go into Ukraine under the Biden regime. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm just reminding everybody in case somebody's just tuning in for the first time. What world is she afraid of? The one where people are looking to have peace? Because it seems like that's exactly where we are today. Anyway, I want to get into the conversation of Elon Musk and as well as what's happening in the Middle East, President Trump and his deadline, and everything else that's going on, like what that's going to look like, as well as the DEI in the military and so much more. And I want to do it with the former SEAL Team 6 member who killed Osama bin Laden, retired Navy SEAL Robert O'Neill, is coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Say this, and I'm going to let that because that's Israel's decision. But as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2.
That is President Trump in the Oval Office yesterday, making it clear that if we don't have the hostages back, there's going to be hell to pay. And just today, more news coming out of Israel with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu now announcing that the ceasefire is likely to end if, check this out.
We're learning Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is threatening a possible ceasefire end. And he did post to social media an X account, but this is from our Fox reporter, Mike Tobin. Netanyahu did post in Hebrew, but Mike Tobin has translated it for us. And this is his statement from the Israeli Prime Minister. It says, if Hamas does not return our hostages by Saturday noon, the ceasefire will end and the IDF will resume intense combat until Hamas is effectively defeated.
So that's the current state of affairs of what's going on right now. And I want to get some reaction to that, some analysis from somebody who knows what's going on. He's the host of the Operator podcast, SEAL Team 6 member, retired Navy SEAL Robert J. O'Neill, 4 Bronze Stars with Valor, New York Times bestselling author. Sir, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Rich. It's great to be here.
You bet. Thank you. And I want to get your thoughts on this because I think, some people were very excited that there was a ceasefire. Others might be excited that we're actually going to eradicate Hamas, which has been a bone of contention in that region for quite some time. And I've never been there. I've never killed Osama bin Laden. I've never done a lot of things that you have. So I want to get your take on it.
Well, the ceasefire is generally just a way for Hamas to regroup because they're getting it handed to them on a daily basis with the IDF and with the coverage from the air, airdrops and all that stuff too. So the bottom line is we've tried this before. We've tried ceasefires before. You're not going to get peace over there until you completely eradicate Hamas, and that's the plain truth. And it's not easy because they've embedded themselves in just massive tunnels. All the aid that allegedly we've been sending, Hamas takes it, and what they don't give to their billionaires in Qatar, they make missiles and they construct tunnels and all this stuff. And these are bad people, and it starts at a very young age because you're dealing with a group that they don't have posters of LeBron James on their wall. They have pictures of people who blew themselves up to become martyrs, and that's what they idolize. They're taught from a very young age how to cut heads off, and you're not going to raise good people that way. So I don't think there's definitely a different tone now that Donald Trump's in office. I don't think they're going to abide by the noon on Saturday thing, and you can kind of tell just they do 3 here, 3 there. We give them hundreds of their terrorists back, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but it's going to come back down to the IDF going through them. They have to wipe them out. They don't have a choice. The one good thing about this is President Trump has been talking to King Abdullah in Jordan, and it seems like he's agreed to take something like 2,000 Palestinian children. And the only way out of this mess is to get the kids and properly educate them, hopefully in Jordan, which is a pretty cool country. I've been there a couple times. If you can get them out of that jihadi mentality and back to reality 2025, then that there is hope there. But it's a messy spot as long as Hamas is there, as long as Iran is calling the shots, as long as the UN is funding them. It's a bad place.
Robert O'Neill, you like I said, you know this region. What do you think about President Trump's idea to revitalize the Gaza Strip with hotels and make it an economic hub?
Well, I mean, it could work because that's some just beautiful beachfront property, beautiful water, great weather. And again, that comes with educating the people. I mean, if you can show them some of these Caribbean islands that we have, that the Brits have, that the locals have, where they make their livings off of tourism. They make, millions, billions of dollars on that stuff too. It's a glorious place, and they could easily do that. The problem is they're force-fed this just completely violent version of Islam, and that's all they know. And you only know what you're taught. Like these kids aren't born they're not born hating Jewish people. You're not born racist. You only know what you're taught, and they're being taught from an early age how bad it is. Instead of blowing yourself up, maybe you just live a good life. Maybe you'll still get to heaven. But I mean, you might as well enjoy it there and get some money from the tourists and a couple pina coladas, and the world will be a safer place.
Folks, we're on with Robert O'Neill, retired Navy SEAL. And listen, I agree with you. I'm open to the idea. I opened up the show saying crazier things have happened, right? There was this billionaire television star from New York City that said he was going to run for president and he was going to build a wall and Mexico was going to pay for it. And a lot of people thought he was nuts. And it's turned out to work remarkably well, right? So I think, turning Gaza into the next Dubai could be the ticket. Now, what do you think of the fallout, perhaps, with the rest of the neighbors, with Egypt and others in that area?
Well, Egypt's, they're building a bigger wall than we have, by the way. They don't want to let any Palestinians in because historically, and I mean historically, longer than this country's been around, wherever Palestinians show up, you get chaos and civil war. They just bring it with them. So they don't really want them there. They definitely don't want them. So I think the only reason King Abdullah in Jordan is taking some is because his wife, Queen Ramallah, is Palestinian, so hopefully she's in his ear. But Egypt is sort of showing force at the border, but the last time they tried that, in 1967, there was the Six-Day War, and Israel basically took everything, including the Suez Canal, which they could do easily. We're lucky that the roles aren't reversed, because if Israel wanted to be the aggressor, they could take the entire Middle East up to Iran. So they're going to posture, and they're going to say what they need to say for a lot of their people, because like every politician, they need to keep some of their people happy. But the backdoor deals have been working since Charlie Wilson was trying to get guns or missiles to the Mujahideen to fight the Russians. They went through Egypt and Israel to get certain weapons. So there are definite backdoor deals, and like we're seeing in this country, as long as people are getting their pockets lined, some stuff can happen, and that's the case over there.
Whew. A lot to take in. Folks, we're going to continue our conversation right now with Robert O'Neill, former United States Navy SEAL Team 6 operator. He's the member who killed Osama bin Laden, and he's also the host of a podcast that you should check out and subscribe to, the Operator Podcast. He's a hero. 2 silver stars, 4 bronze stars with Valor, New York Times best-selling author, and he's our guest. He's coming right back with us when we return. Keep it locked right here, folks. It's Rich Valdez coming back with Robert O'Neill.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
You've talked about wanting to welcome Elon Musk and Doge into the Pentagon potentially in the next few weeks. Do you expect him to start unilaterally cutting programs and contracts the way he's done at USAID and other agencies? And are there any limits or supervision you'd want to place on his team given his conflict of interest with China?
Well, we've been in touch with, I've been in touch with Elon Musk, who's a great patriot, interested in advancing the America First agenda, knows that President Trump got 77 million votes and a mandate from the American people, and part of that is bringing actual business-like efficiency to government, hence what DOGE is doing. We've been talking to them in partnership with them, and as I said on social media, we welcome DOGE to the Pentagon, and I hope to welcome Elon to the Pentagon very soon, and his team, working in collaboration with us. There are waste, redundancies, and headcounts in headquarters that need to be addressed. There's just no doubt. Look at a lot of the climate programs that have been pursued at the Defense Department. The Defense Department is not in the business of climate change, solving the global thermostat. We're in the business of deterring and winning wars.
That's the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, in Germany today, saying, "We welcome DOGE to the Pentagon and we're here to win wars." Our guest knows a little bit about that. Robert O'Neill, retired Navy SEAL from SEAL Team 6. He's the member that killed Osama bin Laden. He's also got a podcast you should check out, the Operator Podcast, and I recommend subscribing to that. Robert O'Neill, when you hear Secretary Hegseth talk about welcoming the DOGE folks over to the Pentagon, I hear it. It's music to my ears. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, he's a breath of fresh air. I've known him for years. Actually, I should call him Mr. Secretary instead of Pete to be a little more formal. No, it's nice to see it. I've been saying for a long time what the military needs is a mid-level officer who's been on the ground with the troops, which Pete has. He's been to Iraq, Afghanistan, and he was a guard at Guantanamo Bay, which means he's seen the worst eye to eye. And also what I love about him is he played basketball at Princeton, where he was known as the hardest worker in the business just to get on the court. It says a lot about his character. He just worked out with a bunch of soldiers in Germany today after maybe 3 hours of sleep, which is great. And that just tells you even when he was talking to the reporters, he was saying, no disrespect to the generals, but I'm more comfortable hanging out with the enlisted guys, which he is. And I think he's going to bring in DOGE, and all they're going to do is audit, which the Pentagon has never asked with their huge budget. And people make the mistake to say Elon Musk comes in and cuts stuff. He doesn't cut anything. Elon Musk comes in, shows the waste, and then it's up to the president. In this case, it'll be up to the Secretary of Defense. And there's so many politicians made it so complicated with all the nonsense. You're supposed to show up, break stuff, and leave, kill bad guys and leave, and let the diplomats handle it from there. They're pushing the green energy. We have the greenest energy as far as nuclear power. It's emission-free, and you'd think the left would love that, but they don't because they were taught it's a bad word, and a lot of liberals only yell about it. They're told what they're supposed to be outraged about, and they just go and scream. But he's going to come in, change some stuff, too. And one of the changes I'd love to see made, when I was in the military, when we get a budget for a platoon or for a team, you have to spend that entire budget or else you won't get the same amount. It should be the opposite. If you can save some, then next year maybe you need a little more. We have an abundance. We have overflow. And that's what it should do. But there's so many different things going on, and it goes back to the politics of the generals getting out and working for the contractors, and you're getting sweet deals, and someone's getting kickbacks. That's why we always leave stuff. We did in Vietnam, stuff in Korea. We left stuff in Afghanistan because we'll just build more so my buddy can get a contract. And it's slimy, it's sloppy, it's real. So and that's what the entire. That's what Donald Trump was elected on. The American public is tired of this, and they're putting a stop to it. They're not being irrational. They're going through the books like we do every March and April. So the 15th we can cut a check that can go to Ghana to teach them transgender friggin' plays or something.
Folks, Robert O'Neill, former SEAL Team 6 member, and I think there's a lot there, right? I want to unpack both sides of that. The first part is I agree that Pentagon needs to be audited, and it's a good thing that we're finally getting there. I once interviewed one of Secretary Hegseth's predecessors, Secretary Miller, and he said, we need to cut our defense budget by a lot. And I was taken aback because I thought, most good conservatives, we want a strong national defense. And he wasn't alluding to having a weak national defense. He was alluding to not spending all this money on these contracts that people are giving each other, getting the stuff for a better rate. Do you think we're headed in that direction?
Yes, and that's why it's called government efficiency, which actually is a weird play on words because those two words do not belong together like Joe
Oxymoronic.
But yes, I think we're headed that way too, and I think a lot of people want that. Especially now, like I said, with the tax season, Americans are actually seeing how their money's being wasted. They're tired of it. We can be a lot more efficient. We can actually get better. We can get better stuff for our men and women in uniform as long as we just pay attention to it. Stop wasting money on command climate and how's everyone getting along. Get them they should have boats to go to the range. They should have a nice weight room with cardio machines and weights. Get them in shape, teach them at the unit. And I mean, in the military, with this whole express yourself and be yourself. No, that's not what it is. And it didn't matter if you were black or white or Asian, gay or straight. All we had in common is crappy haircuts and uniforms, and all we saw was green. And that's how it is. Right. And it's always the pundits on television or the politicians that make it seem like there's this, don't ask, don't tell. We didn't care. All I cared about, I don't care what you do behind closed doors. If you can carry me home to my wife after I've been shot and I'm wearing all my gear, that's all I care about. If you can do it, that's fine. And the rest of it doesn't matter, but they spin it just to get elected. It's a nasty cycle, but I think it's slowly coming to an end.
I want to talk about that a little bit because I think that we've really gone far away from that. And I remember my brother was a Marine, and God rest his soul. And he that's all he ever talked about was how, you all bleed the same color. And I find like that's gone out the window, right? There was no racism. There was no anything. It was just, we do this. We're Americans. We're Marines. And yet somehow today we've got DEI. We've got this pro-trans agenda, this pro-gay agenda. How did that happen?
It's being pushed by the politics, because it doesn't matter if you're enlisted or an officer. When you start getting to a certain level and you want that next star or your first star, you got to play the politics. And politicians start doing that crap too, like it matters. Like I said, it didn't matter to us at all. And it's just when you get to that level, 1, 2 star, 3 star, you're thinking about the next one, your next job, said contractor or political life. You'll notice a lot of general officers are Democrats because they were in power for a long time, and so they want to get up there too. And that's just the sad truth. But a lot of this stuff comes down to money and personal power. And when I say the military too, that's why I love Pete Hegseth. Is once you stop carrying your own luggage, you need to be forced out of the military. That's just too much. You don't need someone carrying your stuff, which they have. Just the efficiency is there. Just get rid of the noise and morale will look at the recruiting rates. They're up so high right now because Donald Trump's in office. Morale is key in any company, any team. If morale is up and people want to be there, they're going to work harder, and they're going to, that's what they're aiming for. Not just divide and conquer. And I need to understand what white rage is, like Millie said. No, you don't, because it's not real to the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. It's fantasy world for politicians, and then the media blasts it out, and then the American public is concerned about their men and women, which they don't need to be.
Robert O'Neill, many people know you as the SEAL Team 6 member that took out Osama bin Laden. When you went out on that mission, did you expect to score that day? Did you know that this guy was going to be in your sights and you were going to close the deal, or was it a pleasant surprise?
I knew he was in the house, and I knew he was going to die that night based on the fantastic analysts, especially the woman that was famous from Zero Dark 30. She was 100% sure. I never thought it would be me, and I thought we were all going to blow up with him because he's going to blow the whole thing up. And it's just one of those things where if you want to make God laugh, tell him what your plan is. Because when we were going up that last set of stairs, I can close my eyes and see it right now. He's going to be right there. He's definitely going to blow up. I wasn't brave. I was just thinking, all right, let's get it over with. I'm tired of thinking about it. So I followed. I squeezed the guy in front of me. He went up and he jumped on some people he thought were suicide bombers. He went one way, I went the other. There's bin Laden standing there. And it's just we had trained. I'd seen his face thousands of times on targets. I knew the tactics to cover each other's back, fields of fire, and just based on the way he was moving, I just shot. It was quicker than I thought. I recognized his nose, and he was tall. And then once it was over, I was sort of standing over him, and one of my guys came up to me and said, "Hey, are you good?" And I said, "What do we do now?" And he said, "Well, now we find the computers. We do this every night. We've done this hundreds of times." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. I'm back. My God." And his words to me were, "Yeah, you just killed Osama bin Laden. Your life just changed. Now get to work."
That's how it is. Amazing story.
Oh, yeah.
Robert O'Neill, host of the Operator Podcast. If people want to learn more about the work that you're doing now, how do they keep in touch with you?
The best way is to follow me on social media, and the cleanest one on Instagram is @TheOperatorPodcast. They can follow me on X and Twitter at MickHooyah, which is a different story in itself, but that's MCHOOYAH. So that's Irish Mick and then Hooyah for Nahuya. So it's Makuya. But follow me there, and then I'll have links to everything and anywhere podcasts are found and on YouTube as well. And I have a Rumble page at Makuya. And it's just what I call it the operator because everyone's an operator if you're doing anything to help someone else. So as a former operator, I tell people what I think, and then I read the comments, and if I'm wrong, this is weird, I admit I was wrong, and I try to correct it. So we have a lot of fun, very engaging audience, and it's fun first and serious. But the Operator Podcast is my favorite.
How often do you put those out? Is that daily, weekly?
I put them out every Wednesday, almost every Wednesday. I got to skip tomorrow for travel, but every Wednesday they're out there, and then I've got them. I'm recycling some of the better ones on my Rumble page, and some of them are just historic. I talk to other special operators, other SEALs, other Marines, and get their stories, other Delta Force guys, and it's just cool to hear how they got to where they were, because it's always the same thing. They tried to join the Army and ended up in the Navy, and the rest is history. You know, I joined because I had a guy tell me I joined because I went to a concert, and I ended up at Delta Force in Black Hawk Down. It's like, well, that's something. So, but just fun stories, and it really brings to light when I interview people the humanity of these are real people that can barely afford their mortgage. They cut their own lawn, and then like me on my birthday, April 10th, 2009, I left my daughter's Easter tea party at a preschool and flew over and rescued Richard Phillips from Somali pirates. So you never know what you're going to get into, but the most important thing in life is wherever you are, be there.
Wow, outstanding. Well, I could talk to you for another hour. Robert O'Neill, hope to have you back really soon. Godspeed to you, sir. You're a gentleman, a patriot, and a scholar.
Well, thank you, Rich. Anytime, man. Hit me up.
You got it, brother. Godspeed. Amigos, we will return. Your calls and more. Open Phones Across America starts now.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Kind of at the heartbeat of America. And you sit there in this radio studio, and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We like to call this part of the show Open Phones Across America, because that's what Larry King called it, and Jim Bohannon called it before me, and that's what I'm going to call it with you guys. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Taking your calls on everything under the sun and everything we've talked about. Where are we going? We can go from any coast of this country to the other, but where am I going? To the Pacific, right? Manila, Philippines, the Manila Thriller. Gil, who's been listening to this show longer than I've been alive. Welcome, my brother.
Well, thank you for taking my call, sir.
Pleasure.
I just wanted to comment. I don't always call, but I always try to listen. And I understand I have a fan in Fargo, North Dakota, who gave me a new handle, the Gila in Manila.
Yes, and that was great.
If he's listening, I'd like to thank him. And I'd like to give a shout-out to Fargo. Fargo is the name of one of my favorite movies. I don't know if you recall that one with William H. Macy.
Don't you know? Yeah, I remember.
Well, I'll give you an interesting fact. Remember the wood chipper that they used to dispose of the body of the wife? The wood chipper is actually a tourist attraction in Fargo, North Dakota. So it's going to be the new Niagara Falls where you go for your honeymoon. Go to the wood chipper.
I'm glad I got this one. You know me, sometimes I'm not quick enough for the humor. That's good, Gil. Thank you. And what's going on in your neck of the woods in the Philippines? How's it going over there?
Well, a lot of politics going on here that may or may not interest the vice president is being impeached because the president is jealous that she's more popular than he is. I think that's the reason. But I just wanted to mention that I'll be back in the States the end of March, and
Nice.
I'll be checking into the Veterans Hospital in Phoenix, and family is going with me, and that's when our daughter will be going into the U.S. Army, going into Army medicine,
Nice.
and we have a lot on our plate, and I'm very, very grateful for that. It's there's always things to do. One quick thing, if I might.
Yes, and congratulations
I'm
on
gonna
that,
be
and thank your daughter for her service. Go ahead.
Okay. When I'm going to be starting a GoFundMe when I go to the States for the only fire department in the world that's run by Catholic nuns.
Wow, I've never heard of it.
Manila. Well,
Wow. So
they don't get much publicity.
Do they
don't get
fight
much
the fires
publicity.
themselves, or they just run the firehouse? How does that work?
Well, they have the largest social welfare institution in the country. They have over 600 people, mentally retarded children, orphans, old people without families. They take in everybody that nobody else wants. And
Wow.
the place has been there since 1820. And the government came in and said they're going to have to put in sprinkler systems. And this place is enormous. It covers almost an acre. And,
So that's why they're
they
doing
don't
the
have
fundraiser.
money. Yeah, well, they don't have the money for the sprinkler system. So I told the sister, why don't we start our own fire department? We could probably get by with a fire truck, and you've got people who are permanent residents and workers here who can be.
Do you have the link
volunteer
for the
firefighters.
GoFundMe yet, or no?
Yeah, well, they've already got one fire engine.
Well, give me the link because
and-
I got to take a break, so you got to give it to me quickly.
Oh, okay.
What is it?
Okay, well, I'm gonna start a GoFundMe.
Oh, you don't
when I
have
go-
the website yet.
Yeah. So anyhow, but we
Well,
can
once
talk
you get
about
it, Gil, make sure you call back and we'll get you on the air so you can put a plug in. I got to take a pause here. Count the Locula's yelling at me in my ear. The Gilla from Manila on the line. Thanks, brother. Godspeed to you. Folks are coming right back. Your calls and more.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with your phone calls. Let's go to Boise, Idaho, KBOI. Check out my man, Paul. Paul, what's going on?
Rich, thanks for taking my call. I missed you last night. I wanted to
Thank
say I thought I had a decent idea for maybe number one, and that is if they're having such a problem with finding out who's going to get the Gaza Strip, I say keep it with the Palestinians and put the United Nations there. You're going to have all of bad actors there because they're from that area. They can keep their eye on each other. Not only that, but they can have the number one could also have the Abraham Accords. I think that might alleviate some problems.
So moving the United Nations headquarters from New York City to the Gaza Strip, I don't know, maybe surrounded by all the hotels. And will there be a Trump Tower there? I don't know. But it sounds like an interesting idea to me. Paul, thanks for the call, my brother. Amigos, we continue with your calls and so much more in the next hour. Or maybe not. I don't know. Take care. Good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national. It's about, 6-7 minutes past 10 o'clock. And our phone number, if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to get into a few things. We've talked a little bit about what was going on with President Trump today, with King Abdullah of Jordan. But there's a few other things going on, right? There's still the push to dismiss federal charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Why? I don't know. This one is one I think is a bad idea. And I encourage everyone involved, El Trompito and everybody on the legal team, Pam Bondi, keep your eyes on Eric Adams. This guy's no bueno. Anyway, you've got some judges that continue to block what El Trompito is trying to do with the executive order that he signed for birthright citizenship. And again, as we discussed with former Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli last night, he said this is how it's got to go. It's got to go through one court to the next court to the next court until it makes its way to the Supreme Court so that this can finally be interpreted. And right now, the ruling on Trump's executive order and Washington and Maryland, and I think there's another jurisdiction, are coming under scrutiny. And the third federal judge now has blocked it, saying that this is not right. You've got a ruling from U.S. District Court Judge Joseph LaPlante in New Hampshire, and he's doing the same thing as the Washington judge and the Maryland judge, at least as their rulings. Now, Trump's executive order is seeking to clarify the 14th Amendment, which states all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Trump's order essentially withholds citizenship for the American-born children of illegal immigrants. Critics contend, I'm reading this from Fox News, that Trump is exceeding his authority with this order. And listen, I hope they say that he's exceeding his authority and it becomes a constitutional question. It has to go before the Supreme Court. So they can go ahead and actually put a ruling in on this to clarify it once and for all. I think that's necessary, appropriate, and good, right? But that saga continues. Let me see. There was also something else I wanted to bring to your attention here. Oh, let's see. There's more lawfare from the judges. Now you've got these activists in black robes, as Mark Levin famously called them, men in black, that are still posing a significant threat to Donaldus Magnus El Trompito, the 45th president of these United States, and his agenda, the MAGA agenda. And they keep up with the lawfare. Many of the same elements of our system of justice that were used to harass, bankrupt, and even try to jail Trump in recent years are still in place and are being weaponized against MAGA right now. This is according to Alex Marlow and Breitbart. Reporting that several activist judges are trying to take control of the government for the deep state as we speak. Judge Angel Kelly, U.S. District Court Judge for the District of Massachusetts, was nominated by Joe Biden. Yesterday, Judge Kelly granted a restraining order against the NIH, the National Institute of Health, and the funding cuts that the DOJ committee put into place. The Trump administration had moved to cap a lot of these indirect costs and reimbursements for quote-unquote overhead expenses on university research, capping them at 15%. And guess what? They say, no thanks, no bueno. So this is just part of what's going on. There's plenty going on here. This stuff's no good. Then you've got J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is meeting with the president of India. They're talking about, guess what? AI. Yep, everybody's talking about AI. Even Elon Musk was talking about AI. And Elon Musk was at the Welt Economic Summit. He was appearing on video just last week. And he says that he's not interested in buying TikTok right now. He went on to say that even buying Twitter was pretty unusual for him. Listen to this.
Acquiring Twitter, now called X, was highly unusual. I usually build companies from scratch. And the reason I acquired Twitter, which is what I said at the time, which is that it was important to preserve freedom of speech in America and to the extent we are legally allowed to in the rest of the world. I felt like acquiring Twitter would be an important, productive step for the future of humanity. And even though it's really quite painful and has been very difficult, it was, I think, nonetheless important to do so. I don't know if the same logic applies to TikTok, but so I'm not gonna. I don't acquire things just for economic reasons, and so it's not clear to me what the purpose of acquiring TikTok would be apart from economics.
So Elon Musk says he's not buying TikTok. So who is going to buy it? Well, we're going to find out a little bit more when we speak with our guest a little bit later. But that's part of what's going on there. Again, of course, President Trump, again, doubling down on his Saturday deadline, as well as, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also making the case that this is what's going on. And we played a report on that in the last hour where they're basically saying, look, Saturday comes around and we don't have all of the hostages. The ceasefire with Hamas is over. So plenty to discuss. We're going to talk about a little Hollywood stuff further down the road, plus all of your calls, open phones across America. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't move a muscle. Coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Valdez, you have one of the greatest shows that radio's ever had.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Now, we've also watched as hostile foreign adversaries have weaponized AI software to rewrite history, surveil users, and censor speech. This is hardly new, of course. As they do with other tech, some authoritarian regimes have stolen and used AI to strengthen their military, intelligence, and surveillance capabilities, capture foreign data, and create propaganda to undermine other nations' national security. I want to be clear. This administration will block such efforts, full stop. We will safeguard American AI and chip technologies from theft and misuse, work with our allies and partners to strengthen and extend these protections, and close pathways to adversaries attaining AI capabilities that threaten all of our people. And I would also remind our international friends here today that partnering with such regimes, it never pays off in the long term.
Vice President J.D. Vance speaking, let me see, that was earlier today in Paris at something called the AI Action Summit, saying we will block any efforts by hostile foreign adversaries to weaponize AI software. And good. It's about time. right? You've seen a lot of crazy stuff out there, and I want to get some reaction to that, some reaction to who's going to buy Twitter, as well as the bid by Elon Musk to buy OpenAI from Sam Bankman-Fried. Is that his name? No. Is that? I don't know. I'll get the details. But I want to go to, Sam Altman, excuse me, the other guy. But I want to go to somebody who knows people's names better than I do. Alan Bakari. He's the managing director of the Foundation for Freedom Online. Alan, welcome back.
Good evening, Rich. Good to be on.
Likewise, brother. Good to speak with you. So let's start with Vice President Vance in Paris saying, "Thou shalt not weaponize the AI." Your thoughts?
I think that's an interesting angle the Vice President is taking there, and it's good for his broader agenda to focus on China, because I think the other side of Vance's speech, which was interesting, was he sort of rejected the idea of AI safetyism, that, it's the job of governments to put all of these guardrails on AI technology. Certainly the Chinese are not going to do that, and if the Chinese are not going to do that, then it's sort of almost a threat to Western security to overregulate the AI sector and the tech sector. And this goes to, I think, the Western political establishment's fear of technology in general that extends not just to AI, but also to social media. I think for the last, almost the last decade, Western governments and Western political forces, certainly Western media companies, have tried to undermine Silicon Valley in any way that they could, and, censor social media platforms in any way that they could, because they saw it as a threat to their control over the flow of information and thus to their political power. And I think Silicon Valley as a whole was sort of rudely awakened over the past 4 years. Many big tech companies worked very hard to elect Joe Biden in 2020. They dutifully censored their own platforms, but the Biden administration was no less hostile towards them because of it, and that really extended to AI as well. So I think we're seeing a very, very different direction on AI from the new administration here.
Alan Bakari, do you think that we should continue to, I don't know if worry is the right word, but should we continue to expect AI to be weaponized? Is this a prescient warning coming from Vice President Vance, or is it just a little foresight? Is he seeing something that may happen? I know a couple of years back in the 2020 election, there was a whole lot of deep fake and things like that, but I feel like there's less of it. Maybe that's my own naivete.
Yeah, I think, the deep fakes issue, there's certainly a potential for fraud. There's certainly a potential for people to get fooled. I'm less worried about deep fake video, which I think is fairly easy to spot, than I am by deep fake audio, which actually has a real potential to break down security systems, to convince someone over the phone that, you're a representative of their bank or a relative. There's, plenty potential, for ordinary people to get scammed by AI technology. In terms of bigger AI threats, national level geopolitical AI threats, I think Vice President Vance is probably referring to the use of AI in military technology. And I think that will be a big trend to watch out for, especially when you add drone warfare into the mix. The ability to detect and shoot down drones. That will probably be AI technology, and whoever's the best at it will have a big advantage there.
Now let's talk about that. Is this happening in many places across the globe, to your knowledge, or is it emerging technology pretty much everywhere?
I think there's ultimately really two relevant AI superpowers at the moment, just the United States and China, and that goes to the cost of AI technology. There was that big story a couple of weeks ago with DeepSeek, this Chinese AI company. And the reason why that was a big story was because DeepSeek claimed, I'm not sure if it's true, to have developed a much lower cost AI model compared to OpenAI and really compared to any competitor. Now, whether they were embellishing the numbers there is an open question. I know some people I know are very skeptical of that. But up until now, it's taken a lot of computing resources to power the large language models that what the large language models are basically what OpenAI is, and what all big AI companies use, and that just takes a huge amount of computing power that only very, very wealthy, billion-dollar tech companies can marshal. Which is why you've got Microsoft behind OpenAI, you've got Facebook running its own large language model. It's really only the big companies that can do it. And the only other country that has those big companies other than the U.S. is China.
Alan Bokhari, I want to get your take on, and you just mentioned OpenAI CEO and founder Sam Altman was throwing shade today on Elon Musk, saying that he offered $97.4 billion for control of OpenAI. And Altman says this move, at least he theorizes, is to slow them down. Your thoughts?
Well, I think Elon Musk has been skeptical, if not hostile, towards OpenAI for quite some time. For a good reason. He was, one of the first investors in OpenAI when it was still a non-profit, and he eventually exited from all involvement with them because they were doing a very strange thing, which was acting as a non-profit, but then sort of gradually moving towards being a private company instead. Which very rarely happens. You very rarely see a non-profit become a private company like that, and that's why Musk backed off. What I find interesting about Sam Altman and Microsoft more generally is that because Microsoft is by far the biggest shareholder of OpenAI, they virtually control it. What's interesting is that every other Silicon Valley company that you look at, whether it's Facebook or even Google now, which has rolled back its DEI initiatives, truly surprising for me to see because I spent so much time covering Google when I was a Breitbart reporter. They were really one of the worst tech companies when it came to censorship. But now they're rolling back their DEI initiative. They're scaling back censorship. Facebook has done the same thing. Obviously, X, formerly Twitter, led the way here. But all of these Silicon Valley companies are just ditching some of the policies that they implemented between 2016 and 2024, when there was such huge pressure from the media, from the government, from foreign governments as well, to implement censorship, to implement DEI policies. They're all getting rid of it now, but Microsoft is kind of dragging its feet on this. They're still partnered with, for example, NewsGuard, which is essentially a private censorship company. They build blacklists of disfavored news outlets, and then they sell those blacklists to advertising companies in order to throttle their advertising revenue. Microsoft, I believe, still has a strong relationship with them. So they've been slower to ditch censorship than the other tech companies, and yet they're still going around Washington collecting political favors, which I find quite interesting.
Folks, we're on with Alan Bokhari. He was, as he mentioned, tech editor over at Breitbart. He's now managing director at the Foundation for Freedom Online. Check out the website, foundationforfreedomonline.com. And we're going to come right back and continue the conversation and get his perspective on who the likely prospective buyer of Twitter will be. X. I'm saying it wrong. TikTok. I'm saying everything wrong. I need coffee. That's coming up. Elon Musk saying he's not buying TikTok because he bought Twitter. So who's going to buy TikTok? We're going to find out in a little bit, at least get some speculation on it from Alan Bokhari from the Foundation for Freedom Online. Keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez. We're coming right back with Alan Bokhari.
Love your show, everything you do. So what an honor, really, to join you and your listeners tonight.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I've not put in a bid for TikTok. I don't have any plans for what would I do if I had TikTok. I guess I would look at the algorithm and try to decide, how harmful or useful is this algorithm, and what can we do to shift the algorithm to be more productive, and ultimately be beneficial to humanity. We should just generally lean in the direction of something which is more beneficial than more harmful.
Elon Musk saying, I'm not buying TikTok. So I want to get the scoop on this. Alan Bakari is managing director for the Foundation for Freedom Online. Check them out at foundationforfreedomonline.com. And Alan, what do you think? If Musk isn't buying it, who are some of the contenders?
Well, this ties in nicely with what we were talking about earlier, because one of the contenders that I know of is Microsoft, which, personally I'm a little bit concerned by. We were saying earlier that, they're sort of unique amongst the Silicon Valley tech giants, and that they've been a lot slower to shed their censorship capacity compared to, say, Facebook, Twitter, and even Google and YouTube. But I know they're one of the contenders to buy TikTok. And, just to go into that censorship history a little bit more, we actually had an article on at the foundationforfreedomonline.com earlier this month looking at how Microsoft had helped advance censorship over the past few years. One of the things they did was they hired a former FBI counterintelligence official who built what was called the Hamilton 68 dashboard. This was an online dashboard that was partly funded by the U.S. government through a sort of nonprofit cutout in I believe it was either 2017 or 2018. But the purpose of the dashboard was to track so-called Russian disinformation. And what it ended up doing was tagging a lot of American social media users as Russian agents. And this is one of the things that came out in the Twitter files, that the output of this dashboard was completely bogus. You can see in emails from inside Twitter at the time in 2018 that senior trust and safety officials at Twitter were saying, this is insane, this is labeling Americans as Russian agents, it's completely false. But the people inside Twitter went along with it anyway and censored those users because they were under so much pressure from the media. The person behind that dashboard was later hired by Microsoft and is still there, to my knowledge. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. So I'd be frankly a little bit concerned if Microsoft were the ones to acquire TikTok. It's interesting that Musk and X are not thinking of acquiring it, because Twitter really had the first version of TikTok before TikTok was ever invented, ever launched. There was Vine, which was exactly the same format, short-form video, and that was a Twitter product, which they shut down. One of the bigger fumbles on Twitter's part, I think.
Yeah, I remember Vine. That was a lot of fun. My kids loved it. Folks, we're on with Alan Bakari, Managing Director at the Foundation for Freedom Online, foundationforfreedomonline.com. With Twitter being up in the air, if Microsoft doesn't get it, any other American companies that come to mind that might be potential contenders? And if none do, and if nobody goes for it, do you think we go back to the drawing board where we're getting rid of them again?
Well, I think the other contenders obviously are, Meta / Facebook. I think TikTok is a product that would fit in very well with Instagram, which it owns already.
So like absorb it or to just complement it? Because they're kind of similar.
Yeah, they complement it, absorb it. I think they'll probably still be separate platforms, but they'll probably be a bit more integrated, much as how Google acquired YouTube and then integrated YouTube and Google account services and things like that. I've heard rumors that Oracle might be interested. I'm not sure if I can confirm that fully. But I think, Facebook, Microsoft, potentially a company like Oracle, it would. I haven't heard anything about Amazon. I mean, Amazon owns Twitch. They could be a buyer, but I haven't heard anything about that. But, if they don't find an American buyer, it's very interesting. TikTok could be banned again because they only have, I think, until I believe April to sell to an American company.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. Now, Alan Bakari, I want you to let everybody who's listening know how they can access the information that you're sharing at the foundation and how they can follow you.
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter, now X, at Alum Bokhari. That's ALLUMBOKHARI. And you can find all of our in-depth reports on online censorship and the forces behind it at the Foundation for Freedom Online.com. We just had a new report up today on how U.S. government taxpayer money has supported the censorship apparatus in Europe, which is now being used to regulate America's own tech companies.
Wow, how are they dealing with that?
Well, I think it'll be an interesting thing for Doge to look at. We have all of these cuts to the government and, these cuts to government grants. So many of these government grants were flowing to nonprofits across the European continent that, both supported and now even help enforce various nonprofits, universities, and some media companies that support the Digital Services Act in Europe, which is Europe's massive tech regulation regime, which can levy massive, really crippling fines against American tech platforms if they fail to take down so-called disinformation and so-called hate speech. They can fine them, I believe, up to 6% of their global annual turnover, which is a massive, massive amount. And, the U.S. government has been tacitly supporting this by funding all of these organizations that help prop up the system.
Folks, Alum Bokhari is in the know. If you want to find out what's going on, check out the website foundationforfreedomonline.com. Alum Bokhari, Managing Director at the Foundation. And Alum, I want to thank you for bringing us up to speed. You always have your finger on the pulse of this stuff. I could read a number of articles and really never get even close to giving the type of analysis you give, so I really appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Great to be on.
You bet. Godspeed. And amigos, of course, your calls. Open phones across America, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Wow, wow, wow. Look at this crowd. Elon Musk, where are you? Bring your ass over here so you can see who's here and what we're doing. We're not afraid of you. We know that you are the co-president now of the United States of America.
That, of course, is our favorite crazy aunt in Washington, our Tia Loca, Representative Maxine Waters. She was outside the Consumer Finance Protection Board yesterday, screaming, "Musk, where are you? Bring your butt over here." She's off her rocker, I think. Anyway, speaking of off the rocker, let's go to our buddy Jerome calling us from Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Jerome, go for it.
As they say on the streets, if the don't come a knocking, if the trailer park's rocking, okay? That's what they say. Hey, I just wanted to say that Ayanna Pressley needs to recognize something. You better recognize, Ayanna, the Kool-Aid drinking Republicans. They don't, it's like that line from the movie, they don't want the truth because they can't handle the truth. Hey, Gaza, anybody see what Gaza look like? Oh, yeah, that's going to be the... Hey, if Gaza turns into Riviera, then I'm going to be the starting quarterback next year for the Dallas Cowboys. What do you think about that, Rich Valdez?
I love it. Listen, I'm open for it. I don't know anything about that stuff. I got to be honest with you. I think, like I said, I give Trump a lot of leeway because he says things that people think are outlandish, and the next thing you know, they're coming to fruition, right? And I think that's how he's won this second election, well, really third election, but he's won this most recent election because people were like, I was criticizing this guy a couple of years ago. Now I realize he was spot on. He was right on the money. And I think he might be spot on and right on the money with this as well. He brings a lot of experience to the table. So I try not to sell El Trompito short. I think he's on to something. But that's what I think, Jerome from Charleston, South Carolina. And listen, I know your type already. If you love Que Mala Eres, you must love Ayanna Presley, right? So I know you got her back, brother. It's all good. Thanks for the call, my brother. And let's see. We will continue with your calls and more. Let me see. Where do we go? We go to a pause. Take a pause, and we come right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
When you're on the air, I feel like I'm sitting across the table from you as I puff on a cigar and have a late night espresso. I feel like you're in my home.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
But I also want to point out, because you brought up Elon Musk, I want to point out that Musk currently is getting billions of dollars in government contracts. And we've not heard about him cutting any of that. And that's coming from defense. Defense currently comprises approximately 16% of our budget, yet nobody's looking at it. Department of Education is less than 1%. It literally doesn't even register. When we talk about U.S. aid, it's 1.1%. So they're over here playing with you. They're playing in your face, trying to say, go look at this penny over here and ignore the other 99 pennies that we got over here. And that's what I want the American people to wake up and see. They're playing in your face, and I'm going to make sure that you know exactly how bad they're playing in your face.
That, of course, Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She's been out there beating the drum hard the last few days, and she sounds mad. But I will say this, that she's there. She's becoming the heir apparent to AOC. Right, her rhetoric might even be a smidgen bit more effective, but I'll concede that while she may be convincing to the lefties, she doesn't really convince me. Elon Musk has Starlink, right? This satellite system. He's got a lot of different things going on, and so if he's getting government contracts, and I'm not in favor of lobbying for him. This is not me being a special advocate of his. But I will say, those things are necessary, and he's created a space for himself. Who created the space for Sesame Street in wherever they were sitting, in Iraq? Who created the space for the DEI trans opera in Colombia, right? This is not really a supply and demand type of thing. There were no people that I can't imagine. There were an overwhelming amount of people saying, we need to do that. We need to send $50 million worth of condoms to Gaza for bombs or whatever else they're using them for. These things are not, no, they're not genuine. So when Jasmine Crockett says that, Elon Musk is not cutting anything that he's getting a benefit from, I would submit we should look at those too, but we can't ignore what we already see. He was able to provide entire countries with internet during blackouts, the middle of a war, all different times. This is not something that you get from a transgender opera in South America. Just my take. Do I have to pause here or do I come back, Count? Okay, we're going to keep going. I love that. Let's go to Mike. Mike is calling us from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA. Go right ahead, Mike.
Hello, Rich. Great show as always.
Thank you.
God bless Donald John Trump. He brought home today Mark Fogel out of a Russian prison back to Pittsburgh to be reunited with his 93-year-old mother. God bless Donald John Trump, Marsha Schaller, Mark Rubio, Dave McCormick, all for their efforts to bring Mark back to Pittsburgh after 4 years in a Russian prison. One thing Donald Trump has done more in 5 weeks than Joe Biden and Harris did in 4 years. And one thing about Biden, he brought home Brittany Griner. And one thing about why he did that, Rich, is to buy the gay vote and the black vote in an election year, and he failed miserably. The Democrats were destroyed in a landslide. So God bless Donald John Trump. Rich, keep up the great work. Hasta la vista, amigo.
I love that. Thank you, Mike, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA. And I think you're right. Trump is definitely blowing out of the water. You know, I get into these arguments all the time with one of my brothers who's a big conspiracy guy, loves QAnon and all that stuff. You know, if I say, it's 12 noon, he's, you don't know anything about time. They're bending time. These guys are time travelers. No matter what I say, he's got a crazy, outlandish thing to add to it. And one of the things that we get into this about is everybody goes to jail. Everybody goes to jail. There's no way these people are going to be so corrupt and nobody's going to be prosecuted. And I said, look, I didn't say nobody. What you're saying, everybody's going to jail. No, most people are not going to jail, right? That's just a reality. So I say all of that because I think we get caught up. We just get caught up in a lot of different things. But Mike, you bring up a very, very solid point, and you're right. We need to do the right thing here. So thank you for your call, my friend. Let us continue. Let's go to Tony, Montreal, Canada. Tony's a regular here. WVMT in the building. Go for it.
How you doing, Rich?
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm just going to say one thing. The representative down from Texas, Dallas, is quite the person that can express herself. And obviously, I looked in her background, and she's an attorney, and she worked for Johnny Cochran's law firm, and she was a activist, BLM. But she's quite a beautiful-looking woman, and obviously an intelligent person. But she's defending what I call the CCC. Criminality, corruption, and cash. That's what the Democratic Party stands for. Let's hide as much abuse, even if it's 1% of $1 trillion. My calculation, that's $10 billion. That $10 billion, I know I could get a great vacation up here out of the north on $10 billion. I'd certainly buy an island in the Caribbean for that, but that's okay. It's 1%, and we're allowed to, corrupt that, use that money for crazy DEI projects in countries like Ireland and wherever. But that's okay. We stand, the Democratic Party, according to this intelligent lawyer, we stand for hiding corruption, we stand for hiding criminality, and we stand for hiding abuse of government treasury and the government's asking of the American taxpayer for these funds. So we're going to hide all this, and we stand for obstruction of what we should be all interested in is discovering government abuse, whether you're a Democratic Party or a Liberal Party in Canada, where we're discovering the same thing, Rich. We're discovering that we're spending $30 billion a year on EV batteries.
Waste.
So all of this corruption is occurring underneath the radar, and people like you and people like me that really pontificate in this, we want this to be stopped.
It does have to end, Tony. Thank you for your call, brother. I appreciate it. Folks, the music means I got to run, but we are coming back with hour number 3, the most coveted hour of the program. If you guys aren't carrying it, you should. All right, amigos, we're coming right back. It's Rich Valdez. Hasta la próxima. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the third hour of the program. We're live, we're national. It's about 7 minutes past 11 o'clock tonight. Tuesday. I never know the day. I don't know why I announce it. I never know. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And so far, we've talked about a lot of things tonight. We talked about the impending end of the ceasefire in Gaza, with President Trump yesterday announcing that Hamas has until Saturday. If all the hostages have not been released by Saturday, there's going to be hell to pay. Today, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announcing that he will, in fact, revoke the ceasefire and do what he's been pledging to do all along, which is eradicate Hamas entirely. I think everybody's trying to avoid that, giving them every opportunity to release the hostages. And I don't know how that ends up, but we've had some discussion on that. We've had some discussion on big tech, right? Big tech and the involvement of Microsoft potentially buying TikTok, as well as Elon Musk saying he's not interested in buying TikTok, and so much more in the big tech world that we talked about in the last hour. And some discussion on all the rest of the domestic stuff we're dealing with, right? We had some really, really good conversations tonight, and I want to have more of them with you, the American people, because you guys are always in the know. And I'm going to get to your calls momentarily, because we've got a pretty action-packed hour for you this hour. I want to talk about some entertainment and everything else that's going on. But let's hit the phones real quick, because Walter is on the line from WFOY, St. Augustine, Florida. Walter, go right ahead, sir.
Hey, Rich. Thank you always for taking our calls, you and Alex. And it's really kind of you to take our calls and our thoughts. When you have experts like Robert O'Neill on.
It's kind of you to
when
call.
You have experts like Robert O'Neill on, we certainly appreciate you. And, Rich, I just want to ask you, do you think that Curtis can really get to Gracie Mansion? And does he himself really want that job?
Curtis is running for real. I can tell you that. I campaigned with Curtis for his last campaign for mayor, and it was a very real campaign. I didn't raise the millions that I guess he would have wanted to, but he definitely raised probably close to $1 million, or maybe it was about $2 million, whatever it was, a few $100,000. I honestly don't remember, but he did well. He did well with what he got, and this is something that I think is a necessary change in New York City. I want to see Curtis and Gracie Mansion. Curtis understands the city like few others. He literally still takes the subway everywhere. He rode the subways during a time similar to now, when things were chaotic and dangerous in New York City. He understands the politics. He knows the politicians, and he knows these neighborhoods. And I can't think of somebody better qualified to be mayor than Curtis Lewa. Really can't. But I will say this. It will not be easy. Somebody that is as radical as Curtis, right? He's a moderate Republican, I would say. He's conservative on some issues, and not so conservative on others. Someone that is not a Democrat, someone that's not a liberal progressive, is going to have a harder time getting elected in New York City than somebody, otherwise, right? The Democrats, they kind of rule the roost there. A Republican, it's going to be a little bit tougher. That's what we've seen historically, right? This is why Eric Adams ran as he kind of critiqued a little bit of BLM, but still very open to embracing the radical left. And he won. Now we see that the Trump administration has been gracious to him, and They've waived these charges that were, impending. But the bigger issue here is your question, right? Can Curtis make it? My hope is yes, absolutely yes. Right? We've got to make that change. It's really up to we the people. If people come out and they support and they're there and the money's there and the volunteer hours are there and the call banks are there, then we start phone banking and we get them elected. Right? That's really, I think, the way politics works. And there hasn't been a time in New York history where I think we've needed it more, honestly. Maybe 1993 when Giuliani was running against Dinkins. That was a necessary change, and I'm glad that happened as well. Anyway, Walter, thank you for your call, my brother. Godspeed to you. I appreciate it. Let's keep the calls going. Frank, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Frank, go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. It was back in the late 1970s or early 80s. I think it was Ed Bradley on 60 Minutes had an episode on the L.A. Battery Company. They'd buy your used battery for $1 and sell you one for $15, but it had a lifetime guarantee to it. The only thing is that it would probably only make it to the next exit if you're lucky. And what they were saying, this was like it was all run by the Mexican cartels and everything. What they wanted to do is have cars break down in every lane of the freeways around L.A., to take our economy to a grinding halt. But now there is a similar company called the California Battery Company, same kind of MO. And my gosh, it's a scam, and you got to watch out for these people on the side of the road, the wreckers and everything like that. They'll sell you a battery. Stay away from these people. These are thieves.
Man, snake oil salesman, Frank. Unbelievable. Thanks for putting me onto that, because I was not aware of that. I didn't know that was happening, and that might be something we could do a whole segment on. I think that's a pretty interesting topic. People getting had by an old scam revisited, right? Old scam 2.0. Very interesting angle, for sure. Frank in Evergreen, Montana on KOFI. I want to ask you a question before I lose you.
Go ahead.
With respect to what's going on with the social media, you hear TikTok being up for sale. It must have an American buyer. If we don't have an American buyer, they're saying we might have to pause TikTok. What do you think ends up happening there?
Oh, I have no use for any social media. I like YouTube for education. But no, I don't want any of this other garbage. I really have no use for it, and I don't really care for it. Period. But
that's it.
That's
me.
Like
it is, Frank. Right? I appreciate it, brother. KOFI in the building, folks. We're coming back. We're going to have some discussion on the entertainment business. I want to talk with Kevin Wade. He's scheduled to join us in a little bit. He is a regular contributor to Tom Selleck's show, Blue Bloods. If you don't know it, you're missing out. It's a great show. And he's got a bunch of things in his filmography, like Made in Manhattan with Jennifer Lopez, Working Girl, Meet Joe Black, Mr. Baseball, True Colors. And he's also the author of a brand new book, Johnny Careless, a novel. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Oh, it's so good to be back with you, and you are absolutely one of my favorites too, brother.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Kevin Wade, the showrunner on TV's Blue Bloods. He's been there since 2011. He's a noted screenwriter. His credits include Made in Manhattan, Working Girl, Meet Joe Black, Mr. Baseball, and True Colors. And he's got a brand new book called Johnny Careless, a novel. Kevin Wade, welcome.
Rich, it's nice to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Likewise. Thanks for joining me, brother. And I want to talk a little bit about your story overall. I want to get into the book, and I'd like to really kind of learn a little bit, I guess give our listeners a little bit of an inside scoop of what it's like working on such a popular and successful television show.
It was all new to me and a great ride. I'd previously been a playwright and then a screenwriter. You mentioned a few of the of the movies, and then one day the movie phone stopped ringing, and I went looking for work. And a little while later, I ended up talking to Leonard Goldberg, who created Blue Bloods, and Tom Selleck, who I knew from that movie you mentioned, Mr. Baseball. We'd spent a month together in Japan a while back. And I had a couple of ideas. I started the following Monday and had no idea, as did anybody who worked there, that we would be 14 years together. So it was kind of an extraordinary, certainly was an extraordinary ride and a huge audience. And we just kept our heads down and our noses to the grindstone, you know. So it was unusual in that we didn't go to award ceremonies or read much about ourselves. We just did what we did, and we knew that there were a lot of people we'd never met who were out there watching it every Friday. It was very, very gratifying.
Yeah, I bet it was. And you made this transition from film to television, very successful in both. And now you've made a pivot into being a novelist. How did that come about?
We were in the middle of in 2023, the actors and the writers went on strike for 6 months. About 6 weeks into it, I realized that I didn't have enough hobbies to fill the day. So I thought, well, I'll go back to the typewriter and see what comes up. And I'd never tried a novel. I'd written plays, screenplays, and a lot of television. So I just started writing this. And I had it obviously has or not obviously, but it has a local police chief as its hero, and is set on the North Shore of Long Island where I live. So the entry to me was fairly easy. I've been writing about police for 13 years, and I was writing about where I lived.
Now, the book, again, is Johnny Careless. It is a novel. And I guess describe it to us a little bit here. You know, tell us who Johnny Chambliss is and how he comes across earning the moniker Johnny Careless.
Johnny Chambliss is what most people would call a rich kid, born with a silver spoon, a good guy, but unaccountable, as somebody born with a silver spoon may be. They don't really have to he doesn't take responsibility for his actions, and he gets the nickname from some coaches and teachers who just kind of went, this guy doesn't care what kind of wake he leaves in his path. And Jeep Mullane, the kind of hero of it, is a guy who grew up with Johnny, though from the other side of the tracks, and followed his dad into the NYPD, bounced out after an emotional case, and comes to be the local police chief. And on the second page, his childhood friend Johnny washes up on the beach dead, looks like a boating accident, and it's really only Jeep that goes, I know this guy, and I don't think he died in a boating accident, swimming around in the middle of the night. And it goes from there.
Very interesting, folks. Again, the book is Johnny Careless. The author, Kevin Wade, the showrunner on TV's Blue Bloods. That's the police drama with Tom Selleck and Mark Wahlberg and a number of other great actors. And Kevin's in this business of writing screenplays, television, and now a novel. Johnny Careless, again, is the book. Now, what I find interesting is you went straight to doing a novel and not another type of book. What was the the rationale there? Did you already have this story, or it was it a yearning you've had to write a novel?
I think I've always wanted to write a novel. I think anybody who writes looks at novels as where the bar is really set. I loved writing plays and screenplays and teleplays, but they're not meant to be read. They are blueprints for directors and actors to give those stories dimension on screens. So it's the first time that I sat down going, well, whatever I'm doing here goes from me to a reader's hands. There's no middleman, and that was kind of appealing. And I just started doing it. It was a lot more words than I was used to. The fact that there were no handsome, swashbuckling, beautiful, sexy, funny actors going to bring my characters to life was brand new and kind of daunting. But I started to enjoy it. I got to do a lot of jobs that I'd watched other people do really well, from locations to wardrobe to directing and cinematography. The writer has to do all of those when you're writing a book.
Fascinating. Folks, again, the book is Johnny Careless, a novel, and the author is Kevin Wade. Kevin Wade, I want you to kind of walk us through, maybe not little kid you, but coming of age you. Did you always want to get into film and television? Was the arts the clear path for you, or was it accidental?
It was clearly accidental. I dropped out of college when I was 19 to move to New York to become an actor. New York mostly cast me as a bartender. So by the time I was 25, I was without a college degree, and I enjoyed bartending, but I wanted more, so I tried my hand at writing a play, thinking I'd been in some pretty bad plays. Maybe I could write a good play, or at least a bad play, and it looked like the playwright had a lot of fun. And I did that, and then I wrote a few plays, and Working Girl was popular with audiences and with critics, so I kind of backed into a movie writing career. About 15, 16 years later, the movie phone kind of stopped ringing. And I still needed to work, and I watched a lot of television, as a lot of people do, and I thought I'd try my hand at that, and ended up with Tom and Leonard and stepping into Blue Bloods.
I love it. And I think it's inspirational. A lot of people are always asking, how they get into this industry or that industry.
Yeah.
And I think a story like this is evident that, where there's a will, there's a way. And B, sometimes you could be in the industry and the industry gives up on you, right? And you've got to pivot to go from playwriting to screenwriting to novel writing, which I think is
Rich, I think for anybody in your audience who's had to reinvent, it's the same as any other business. At a certain point, you've got to reinvent and go, all right, I got to take my toolkit to another shop.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Now, folks, again, the book is Johnny Careless, a novel. You can get it on Amazon. The author is Kevin Wade. Kevin Wade, in the few seconds we have remaining, I want you to let everybody know, how do they find you and find you online and follow you?
I am Kevin Wade, or at Kevin Wade on Instagram. I'm Just Me on Facebook, and I'll post my phone number soon.
Perfect. You got it, Kevin Wade. Thank you for being with us. I appreciate it. Godspeed to you, and I hope to have you back soon. My best to everybody at Blue Bloods. I want to be on the show, by the way. I want to play the bald guy. Folks, Kevin Wade, I appreciate it. Get his book. We're coming right back. It's Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And here's a pastor. This guy, I think, is a little bit over the top. A little bit more than a little bit, right? Pastor Steve Caudle. He's a preacher out in Tennessee. I'll be in Tennessee, actually, in a couple of days. And on Sunday, he says that violence is necessary when Elon Musk tries to steal your personal information and your Social Security check. Now, I mean, they keep saying this, and I know the famous Nazi propagandist Goebbels said that you say anything enough times, people will believe it. But, I mean, people keep getting their Social Security checks. Why do they keep believing that Elon Musk is stealing someone's Social Security check? Listen to this.
And in this nation, I'm worried that we are on the verge of bloodshed. This is an attempt to take us back to a day that we do not want to go and we will not go. So therefore, there will be conflict. I pray that the peace of God will win out and overcome the madness that is attempting to take over this nation. And I will say to you, beloved, no one likes violence, but sometimes violence is necessary. When Elon Musk forces his way into the United States Treasury and threatens to steal your personal information and your Social Security check, there is the possibility of violence. Sometimes the devil will act so ugly that you have no other choice but to get violent and fight.
What? Hold on a second, Pastor. You can't be calling people to violence and to fight. What do you want them to do? Fight Elon Musk? I mean, how does this really work? The last guy who did that was Mark Zuckerberg. He wanted to have a whole tussle with Musk, and I don't think it ever happened. Go ahead.
Well, someone might say, now, Reverend, you shouldn't be talking about violence.
Yeah.
This isn't the Christian thing to do. Well, I will say, why not talk this way? Because Jesus did. Jesus said in this key verse, didn't he? The kingdom of heaven suffers what? Violence. And the who? The violent take it by force. The kingdom of God is a war zone. It is a battlefield. You did know this, right?
Now, you know what's interesting here, that the pastor says all of this, but again, he's quoting the actual scripture, right? And the kingdom of heaven has suffered violence, and the violent take it by force. This is not a command to be violent and take it by force. This is saying that the kingdom of heaven has been subjected to violence, and violent people have been raiding it. Violent people have been trying to take over the kingdom of heaven by force. He's just making a statement that this is what is happening. He's not asking people to go and take something violently by force. Well, how do you know that, Rich? Well, very simply. A, I know how to read. And B, what did Jesus take by force? Nothing. Not a damn thing. So, I think it's high time we check our people, right? I mean, come on. Now, listen, I am no theologian. I am not a pastor. I spent some time in ministry some years ago as a chaplain and a children's minister in my local church, volunteer capacity. I'm not this man, right? This man sounds like a learned and studied man. Good for him. He sounds very well read on these topics. But when it comes to this, his interpretation's way off. And somebody needs to tell him that he's getting it wrong. He's really missing it. Because we can't sit here and say that because Elon Musk is conducting an audit, that somehow we should be doing that. That is pure insanity, right? Unbelievable. Anyway, I'm going to move on from that. But I'd love to get your thoughts on it. 833-482-5337, 8334-Valdez. If you think that people need to become violent to take on and oppose Elon Musk, I don't think so. I really don't. But, what do I know? I want to get your thoughts on that. I also want you to hear another clip that I've got. Because in addition to good old Pastor Steve, we've got a lot of other crazy that's out there, right? A little while ago, I played a clip for you of Jasmine Crockett. And she says, they're playing in your face. They're trying to say, go look at this penny over here and ignore the other 99 pennies that we've got over here. And that's what the American people wake up to. Well, I would tell her, there's really not even pennies anymore, right? I think pennies have been largely replaced by nothing, right? I think they're out the door. I don't think anybody's messing with pennies anymore. President Donald Trump announced his intention to eliminate the penny on Sunday, citing the rising cost of producing this there's coin. Now, data from the U.S. Treasury shows that it's not just the coin, but it costs more than it's worth to produce. Actually, both the penny and the nickel have a manufacturing cost that are greater than their face value. And that's according to a report in the Treasury from December. It cost nearly 4 cents to mint and distribute a single penny. That was during the 2024 fiscal year. And the production cost of a nickel has risen to nearly 14 cents. Unbelievable. And it's not made out of nickel either, or silver. So whatever they're using, the material costs continue to rise, and it's going up, right? A quarter cost, 23% more to make last year than it did in 2023. That's a quarter. That's insane to me, right? It's insane to me that we have inflation on the production cost of our coins. This is clearly going to affect our standing, our valuation of the dollar. I mean, you name it. It's going to affect a lot of things. Good idea that we're getting rid of this. We're cutting some of the overhead. Good. I think that's great. But if we continue on this path, imagine it's like, all right, it costs us this much to print the dollar, and at some point we're just going to be losing and losing and losing. And we're not in the business of losing, are we? Right? I said we've got to win. Are you tired of winning yet? That's what El Trompito said. And I'm with El Trompito on that one. So anyway, I want to get to your calls. We're going to get to your calls momentarily. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company till 1 a.m. Eastern time, midnight in some areas. And I want to go to the phones here, 833-4-VALDEZ. I want to get your thoughts on this pastor calling for violence and, in my opinion, misrepresenting the gospel, right? He's quoting from Matthew 11:12. This is Jesus paying homage, if you will, to the ministry of his cousin John the Baptist, saying since, I got it right here, let's see, since the time, where did it go? I lost my place now. Hold it, I got it right here. And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. Now, this is, again, what I understand to be the people working out their salvation in fear and trembling, right? People who are making a concerted effort to enter the kingdom despite the violent opposition to being a Christian, a follower of Christ. This had nothing to do with a call to being violent, but more so the kingdom of heaven being subjected to violence and violent people having been trying to attack. But you may have a different opinion, so give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Paul, Williamsport, Pennsylvania, WILQ. Paul, go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, first-time caller. I am a pastor.
Welcome.
Went to Westminster Seminary in Philadelphia. I have kept up all these years. I'm 73, but I've always kept up with my Greek and Hebrew. I'm looking at my Greek text of Matthew 11:12. You can put legitimately a couple interpretations on it. But if you look at the context, and you were very much just about totally spot on, it is talking about, first of all, John the Baptist, Jesus' cousin, and his ministry, which Jesus has taken over. And I'm sure you don't want to get in all the weeds of the Greek words. They're in front of me here, but one of the ways you very legitimately, in the context, it's what makes sense, It says the kingdom of heaven is forcefully advancing, and forceful men take hold of it, and people take hold of it. What Jesus is saying is, the word is biodzatai, from the Greek word biodzo. And in the middle, that's sort of a reflexive sense. It means it is pushing itself forward violently against the opposition of Satan, evil, and evil people, which is exactly parallel to what we have to be doing today. There's opposition, and it's a call from Jesus, going on and fulfilling John's ministry, saying, hey, this isn't for wimpy people.
Right. Not
This
for the
isn't
faint of
as
heart.
Schwarzenegger for girly men, You got to know what you're getting into. You got to count the cost. But hey, if you're a real woman, a real man, you're going to have opposition. Grab it. It's forcing itself against opposition. And people with the fortitude and the vision, by the grace of God, they take hold of it and hold on to it.
Well, amen to that, brother. I appreciate that. And thanks for the clarification from the Greek and the Hebrew. And it's always, I think, important to have additional context, historical context and whatnot. And I think it's paramount to appreciate that this is still not what this pastor's telling us to act violently towards Elon Musk. Is there any defense of that?
No, absolutely not. No, it's talking about the kingdom of God. Right. No, you're exactly right. It's saying the kingdom of God is forcefully advancing.
Right.
And that's through the power of the Holy Spirit. And ultimately what Jesus exemplified, Jesus' triumph in the cross, where he isn't going out and taking the streets and saying, we're going to do it. No. There's absolutely. And part of it is, we interpret scripture. You know this. I hear you often enough. We interpret scripture with other scripture. Where in the Bible does it say, go out and violently start attacking?
Right.
It doesn't.
Yeah. And this is, I think, a common, I've seen this verse been misused many, many times by believers that feel that, you've got to, Jesus was some sort of Marxist revolutionary, when you use the word, right? Because the Marxists always want to have some sort of armed revolution. And I would say Jesus was definitely a revolutionary. He wasn't armed, and he didn't come in the name of violence and maybe advancing the kingdom forcefully, but doing it through love, doing it through forgiveness. Other than the flipping of the table, I don't see Jesus being anything other than pacifistic through most of the Bible. Your thoughts?
Correct. You're absolutely right, Rich. There is the reason he did that in the temple, which is covered in the 2nd chapter of John, and of course later on, and it seems like probably he did it twice, early in his ministry, and then later on, towards in the last week in Passion Week. But that's because they were abusing the temple where people were supposed to come to meet with God for forgiveness of sins. Right. And he said, "You're turning into a den of thieves."
Yeah, it's also just something I want to point out, and I'd like to get your thoughts on as well, is that many of us, right, and not to get overly spiritual here, but many of us, you're like, hey, you push me, I'm pushing you back. You punch me, I'm going to kick you. But I think Jesus made it clear. You've heard of an eye for an eye, but, let me tell you to turn the other cheek, right? This is, of course, parable, but I think he's calling us to be pacifistic and forgiving and conciliatory and forgiving 7 times 70. No?
Yes. No, correct. Now, look, what I'm going to say next, big subject. It's a fascinating subject to me. And again, when I was in seminary, when I was in college, at Geneva College, I learned about the philosophy of a Christian philosopher named Herman Doyle, Dutch. And it's not like it's just exclusive to him. The Bible gives us instructions for what the church is supposed to do, what the government is supposed to do, church, state, and then family. As when I represent the church, you're exactly right. Representing the church, we never, as you say, we're supposed to be pacifist, as Jesus was. The church is not given the power of the sword. Old Testament, kingdom of God, that's different. But the New Testament, with fulfillment, The church does not have the power of this world. We're supposed to be persecuted if need be. Now, as an individual, look, my early years, so I was 9 years old, I lived in a housing project in New York City. My mother and father were devout Christians.
Whereabouts?
I love to be outside. Redfern Project in Far Rockaway.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was. And my racism was very real back then. I didn't realize it. I just was friends with everybody, and black kids and Puerto Rican kids and Jewish kids. They could call and all come in the apartment. And my mother let me play the piano and this and the other. And so the older black kids watched out for me. Now I got in 3 fights a day. You know, it's just how it was. Yeah. I got real good at it. But see, but my mother taught me and my father. Look, when somebody's just trying to hit you because you're another person, well, God wants you to defend yourself.
Sure.
They're not saying, oh, Paul, it's because you're a Christian. That's different. That's a whole different thing. The church is never supposed to defend itself with the sword. And look, in civil government, we know very well the state, you defend things legally. You don't go out and take to the streets and say, we're going to throw rocks and burn things and so on.
Man, a truer statement couldn't have been made, Pastor. I got to pause here because I have to take this break, but I think you're spot on there, and I appreciate the call. I'm glad you called in. It was very timely and good discussion. Pastor, thank you for your call, and big shout-out to you guys in WILQ, Paul and Williamsport. Thank you, sir. I'm going to come right back to the rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with your calls. Open phones across America. Alan, Crystal Springs, Mississippi, WFMM. Go for it.
Hello, Rich.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
I'm sorry, Mr. Valdez.
My pleasure. Go right ahead.
Well, I was calling about the Palestinian question. But then another thought came to mind. But first of all, with the Palestinians, they if the other Arab countries take them, they need to scatter them. And I thought of the examples were how the Somalians were all placed in a cold little state, you know, or well, not little, but a cold state, a beautiful town. I mean, I've been to Minneapolis, and it used to be so beautiful.
I see what you're saying. I think the issue with that is many times any immigrant group, when they move to an area, whether it's Little Italy or Chinatown or the barrio, right? People tend to congregate with one another and they get together. You look at Brighton Beach in Brooklyn, it was all Ukrainian and Russian. People, there's strength in numbers and people find comfort in community. So I don't know if that'll happen. I don't even know what's going to happen there. But Alan, Crystal Springs, Mississippi, thank you for your call. Shout out to Superstation, Super Talk, WFMM. And amigos, hasta la próxima. Until next time, America, take care, good night, and God bless you. I'm Rich Valdez.